Hi, this is John with Performance Plus Tennis. In today's lesson, we're going to cover the topspin forehand and show you how to get more topspin without losing control of your shot. We're also going to cover a couple of myths and ideas about getting topspin. They're going to help cure your topspin forehand once and for all. So I'm going to begin with just a brief review of what topspin is and why you need it in your game. And quite simply, topspin is produced when your racket head is moving from low to high when it places the strings on the ball, and it grabs the ball and produces a forward spin. So the ball is spinning forward in the same direction it's going. The reason why it's called topspin is because we're really feeling the sensation of maybe getting on top of the ball a little bit as we play it. But that can also lead to a myth that can cause inconsistency, which we'll cover here in the video as well. And the benefit of topspin is that it makes the ball descend down in the court. So as you start to play higher and higher performance tennis, you're hitting the ball harder and harder. If you don't have topspin, you have a very narrow margin to keep your ball in the court. But with topspin, you can play with confidence, you can swing aggressively, and if you get spin on the ball, it will have a diving quality. It'll make your game much, much more consistent. The key is to understand how to generate topspin to maintain the consistency and avoid some of the myths that are out there about how to get topspin on your strokes. One of the common myths about getting topspin is that the word top means we're going to actually hit the top of the ball. And oftentimes players will try to come in and hit the top of the ball or roll their strings over as they're making contact to try and time that shot to hit topspin. And the risk in that, of course, is that the ball is really only on the strings for about 1/25th of a second. And there's just no way you can establish any consistency if your racket's rolling into the ball. So when we look at high performance players and professional players, they're actually holding the racket as it's coming in, and it may be closed here in the back, which is ideal, but it's going to come in and it's going to hold as it comes in. There's not going to be any rolling or wibble wobbles or flip flops or any of that kind of action. Any of those kind of movements are going to just lead to inconsistency. So remember, to get topspin, the racket has to be vertical or nearly vertical at contact and be moving from low to high. And if you don't have that action in there or movement, and you're really trying to play through the wrist and the forearm, you're definitely going to lose consistency in the attempt to put spin on the ball. Myth number 2 about hitting topspin on your forehand is that you have to bend really low and get well below the ball to hit topspin. So we see some coaches and instruction out there, and we see a lot of players that feel like they have to bend and really get below the ball and come up on a very, very steep angle to get topspin. And that really isn't true at all. In fact, if you get yourself down really low and you get your hand and the racket below the ball, it weakens the shot. So it makes it a weak, uncomfortable, and unnatural movement. And you can watch the best topspin forehand in history, Rafael Nadal, and his racket head will get no more than a foot, maybe 18 inches below the level of the ball. Because the ball doesn't know where you come from. It just knows the speed of the racket and the path of the racket and the angle of the racket at impact. So you can come from just slightly below the level of the ball, let's say a foot, foot and a half, and you can put any level of spin on the ball you want to. And when you stand up taller and you let the racket head fall below your hand and come up, you're going to be in a much more powerful position than if you drop down low and try to come up into the ball. In fact, this action you can just see makes more of a scooping quality, and there's really no way you're going to get power. Okay? Another thing about the modern forehand, topspin forehand, is that it's more rotational in nature. So we've learned over the years how to not have to get so low to hit a ball, but rather stand up so you can rotate and make sure that the racket gets below the ball and you rotate in and up through the ball. Another key element to getting topspin on the forehand, I mentioned a little bit earlier, is having the racket face closed in the back, and certainly in the backswing and the preparation phase of the forehand. So this will really help you if you're one of the type of player that rolls the racket into the ball. This will help you. But when you take the racket back, well, first of all, I have a modified Eastern or almost a semi-Western grip on my forehand, and that naturally sets me up in a ready position where the racket face is closed. And then when I enter into my stroke, my racket face is closed, it's closed, it's closed, and now without any wrist rotation, just the swing forward and upward from the shoulder produces a vertical racket face. And then once I get to the racket face, up to the ball, I just turn the racket over the ball this way. So there's really no turning. I'm not really flipping it, but the racket doesn't go up above. And here's one way to think about it. Coach told me this a long time ago. There's really no place in the forehand swing where the racket face should feel open or be open. So when I take it back, it's closed, it's closed, it's this closed point at the bottom. swings up into contact, but from this point forward, I'm going to feel like I cover over the ball and come around, and at the end, the racket is still slightly closed. So if you want to get more topspin on your forehand, avoid the idea of feeling like you're going to go up and then scoop the ball and open the racket face. We really want to avoid that swing pattern to get topspin on your forehand. So at this point, you might be thinking, well, John, you don't want me to bend low, you don't want me to get low, and you don't want me to use my wrist and roll the racket over. So how do I get topspin on the forehand? Well, what I really want you to do is feel like you take your swing low to high, but you involve long axis rotation from the shoulder. And what I mean specifically by that is that when I take the racket and I drop the racket into the bottom here, which happens, the bottom of the swing is actually behind me. So we don't want a pendulum swing as much as we want a swing where the racket drops to the bottom behind me and then rises up to the ball, okay? So when I'm making this move, what happens is my hand literally turns out. So if you watch me here, I've got my thumb pointing to the sky, and I can put the racket in my hand this way with the thumb pointing up. But when I get to the back, my thumb is pointing down. So if I take the racket out of my hand is rotated, my fingers are down, and my thumb is pointing right at you, at the camera. Now if I put the racket in my hand in that position, the racket is dropped below the hand, okay? And now when I'm going to bring the racket up, I am going to be swinging forward and up, but I'm going to introduce shoulder rotation into this upward movement. So I'm really not playing with the wrist at all, and I'm not really playing from the elbow at all. I'm actually really playing from the shoulder. See that? So all this action, low to high and forward, blending in a rotation from the shoulder, is the feeling and the intention that you want when you're playing your topspin forehand. To drop the racket head below by turning the hand down and outward, and then bringing it up to match the hand on the contact, and then let the shoulder rotate over, okay? And really avoid trying to introduce too much wrist movement in there. Now, some of you might be thinking, boy, I look at the films of the pros and I see lagging and all this action back here. Let that happen by itself as a natural consequence of, first, relaxation in your swing, and second, the sequencing of how the racket drops and the body rotates. And that will produce a natural lag. And from that lag position, just hold it and bring it in. We hear the term lag and snap. That's really not going to help you. If you lag and then snap, it's not going to help you get topspin, and it's definitely not going to help you control the ball. So the feeling, the intention, the sensation you want to have is that your racket's going to drop, the body's going to be rotating, we're going to sequence that movement, and we're going to deliver that movement through the shoulder power. And that is how you're going to generate topspin and maintain control of the ball at the same time. So think less about wrist, elbow, think more about how you're going to rotate the core, let this soften in the back, and then deliver the swing as a unit of movement through the rotation of the body and through the shoulder. And that's going to enable you to develop lots of topspin variations in your stroke, and still maintain control over the ball. And as a bonus tip, I'm going to give you some practice drills that you can do on your own without a practice partner that will really help you. And when I was learning tennis and growing up and on the court, I spent a lot of time by myself, and I really worked on the skills I was learning in lessons. So I'd go out with balls and practice, and I'd work on my topspin. Now we have 3 cones over here. The one that's closest to the net is actually halfway between the net and the service line, but it looks like it's just past the net. The second one is in the service box, and then the third one is 3 feet from the opposing baseline. So from here, I can work on a variety of different shots. I can work on a typical driving forehand that's got 2 to 3 nets of height over the net that goes out towards the target. I can work on that. I can work on the ball that's going to be a dip drive that just barely goes over the net and drops down by the cone. And I can go for the service box corner as well. And you can see that I'm generating spin on all these balls, but I'm not playing with my wrist at all. I'm letting this soften and rise from a foot, maybe a foot and a half below, coming up, covering over the ball, and playing all the way through that shot through my shoulders. Now, one additional tip here, when you're practicing, really try to build footwork into your movement. So I did a demonstration here where I wasn't moving my feet at all, but make it realistic. Try to get in a ready position, move out, put the ball down, play your dip drive, come back in, go for the service box corner, come back in, go for your deeper ball in the court. That was too low, get more spin on it, lift it up. That's a very good ball. And you can even work on topspin lob and get the ball up and over. So you can build so much variety of shots and spins in your topspin forehand without having a practice partner. And then when you get into your match play, when that ball sits there for you, you can play onto the ball and apply the same feel that you've developed in your practice and use it to play great shots in your matches. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already. If you'd like to learn more about the forehand, click on the link in the description down below and learn the 5 key fundamentals that you need to master to achieve your full potential on your forehand. And that lesson is sure to help you out quite a bit. Please stay tuned for the next lesson. Thanks again for watching today's video, and we'll see you in the next lesson.